Joining me right now, Republican Congresswoman from Arizona, Martha McSally. And Congresswoman, I should also point out, you're running for Senate there in Arizona. Do you think they're going to get anything done, or are we going to be looking at a government shutdown?
Well, let's be clear, Trish. The only deadline coming up this week is on the government funding, and we need to make sure that we have a deal that supports our troops, that funds our military so that they can keep us safe. It's the Democrats that have decided to try and hold the funding discussions hostage to something that has nothing to do with a deadline this week, and that's DACA. So they need to separate it. They need to stop playing politics with our military and our troops. Those who are deployed right now, their family members back here, I can't imagine what they're thinking, that they're creating this false crisis that they seem to do in Washington, D.C., that has nothing to do with our government funding. So this week, the focus should be, and the American people should demand, that we get to a funding deal to fund our military, support our troops, move past that while we continue to negotiate in good faith on border security, immigration issues that are the highest priority while addressing the DACA issue. The deadline is not this week for that, and they are turning it into a false crisis.
Well, Congresswoman, this is what, frankly, both sides of the aisle do. They play politics at times when they absolutely shouldn't be, but thus is the world we live in. So with that in mind, are they looking to gain some kind of advantage here in that they believe if they hold out and they shut down the government over this, they look to the immigrant populations in the United States of America as though they're the heroes because they're working on behalf of that population? And maybe they don't care so much about our military population. That's not their base.
Well, I don't know what's in their hearts, but that strategy is reckless and irresponsible. Our troops right now are in harm's way, that they need the resources, they need the training, the equipment, and the certainty in order to keep us safe in an increasingly dangerous world. And they're going to have to answer, if that's the choice they make, they're going to have to answer to the American people that they decided to side with those here illegally over our troops. That is really a poor decision, and it's their responsibility as leaders in our nation to not buckle to any sort of political pressures from the extremes, but to actually sit down and do the hard work. The most important job of the federal government is to keep us safe and support our troops. That's the message to them today.
Well, they want a clean Dreamers bill. They don't want it attached to any kind of funding for a wall or any kind of border enforcements. They want just, a path forward for these Dreamers. Is there any chance that the president or any Republicans will go for that?
There is no freaking way, Trish, that a Clean Dream Act is passing. They need to get off the planet they are on and come to the table and negotiate with us in good faith. I introduced a bill last week with some of my teammates that we believe are the highest priorities for addressing the issues of border security, of public safety and national security related to our broken border security strategies of the past and our immigration policies of the past, while addressing things like chain migration, the visa lottery, again, and real border security to address the highest priorities of Americans. We want them to come to the table. I was at that meeting in the White House.
I know you were. I know. And you know what? Everything, I was actually quite pessimistic about the whole thing. I think, I actually was one who didn't think you guys had much of a shot at getting something done. And then I watched Congresswoman that meeting, and I thought, my goodness, you might actually see a real negotiation now. But what is it that you can give them that they want that will enable something here to get done?
So I would ask them all to look at our bill. Our bill is a good bill that addresses, again, border security for people like me who represent border communities and border states. We have got to stop these cartels from trafficking through our communities. It addresses the priorities of ending chain migration, which is extended family migration, plus ending the visa lottery, closing loopholes that the cartels are taking advantage of.
And in exchange, you give them what?
In exchange, we give them a legal status if they stay out of trouble, where they can work and go to school, but they're not getting any special path to go in front of people that have done this the legal way. This is a reasonable approach that addresses the root causes of why we have a DACA population in the first place and make sure that we don't have another one again in the future.
Part of negotiation, I guess, in some ways, everybody should be a little bit happy and everybody should be a little bit upset.
Right.
And I know there's many members of the base that do not want to see any kind of legitimate status for Dreamers because they fear that might encourage more to come here. So you guys are losing out on something. And yes, the left is losing out on something because you're going to say we're going to enforce these borders and we're not going to allow more of this to happen.
Right.
It seems reasonable to me, but, no one seems to be that reasonable in D.C. these days. But
well,
fortunately,
again,
you are.
Yeah, exactly. If you look at our bill, it gets to the root causes of why we have these problems in the first place, addresses the very real security issues, doesn't incentivize additional illegal activity or reward those who brought the DACA population here in the first place. You got the White House asked for 70 points, and we actually came somewhere in the middle of about half of those points that we think are the prioritized, reasonable approach, and we're asking for a negotiation.
Okay, and hopefully the government doesn't shut down over all this. I want to thank you. And by the way, good luck on the Senate campaign. I liked your mention of Barry Goldwater many times in your enunciation speech.
I flew around in an AT-6 World War II trainer that was the type that Barry Goldwater flew. I was a fighter pilot, talk like one, and we're ready to fly, fight, and win this campaign.
Congresswoman McSally, thank you so much. Good luck.
Thanks, Trish.